Astrology or Paint About Astrology episode where I rumble about astrology while creating art. And now Venus currently is in Aquarius with the moon, I think, still in Libra and Mars in Gemini direct over Mercury retrograde. So this is a great time for chaos. Um, I'd like to begin with the Mercury retrograde. This is a glass and I'm going to use it. It's a carton glass. Paint over this newspaper page. We'll begin with the 105 by Royal Talents, Amsterdam. That can be bought in any store and I guess ordered online if you're ordering online. And this is the 105. No colors. I like this turquoise, but yeah, should I keep using that? I'll just begin with a little bit of the turquoise. I'd like to talk about the first Mercury retrograde. And why Mercury retrograde? Because there is a divine order in the chaos of things, and Mercury retrograde, that color was 661, and this is 564. The Mercury, modern astrologers say Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, and when Mercury goes retrograde, we understand is coinciding with things going in a very weird order. Okay? There is disruption, things do not go in a linear fashion, communication is not so linear as well. And so within that chaotic disorder of Uranus, the color is 618, it's the green. And these are all by the same company that I mentioned. I'm going to use the glass with this side and I'm just going to smear it into a wave form and just smear it again into a wave form and interesting patterns. Oh, I kind of like it. And then I'll add a little. We have some music. I'm trying to do quicker tapping. And just this glass. And you can see how also with the Mercury, here's something beginning to become. This reminds me of the concept of emergence. And we're starting with Mercury retrograde, disrupted communication, so chaotic communication, leading into the higher octave that is Uranus. On a conceptual level, we can talk about fluid concepts, which will lead me to Neptune already, but I'll wait with fluid concepts. I just put fluid concepts aside. And I talk about the unusualness of communication and about emergence. Emergence is a pattern that emerging from matter into spirit. Basically, it's not the top down. This is my finger, just grabbing some remnants of this paint and going in a wave form, caressing the paper. So smearing a little more. It's always nice to touch the materia with bare hands. So it shouldn't be too problematic with acrylic. I don't think it's that toxic. But you do want to wash your hands later. Emergence is basically consciousness emerging from matter. It's the higher levels of existence emerging from the levels below. And this is one of the processes of consciousness, or how consciousness integrates with matter and how matter integrates with consciousness. When we talk about the body-mind question, okay, so there's top-down. Okay, there's the hypothesis that from the energy form, something is birthing in matter. This is the top down. It's a lot of the manifestations, the secret. And Abraham Hicks would talk about things that are less material, manifesting into the materials. It's top down. Yes, you have in conscious form, wave form, and I'm looking at the waveform today. Emergence is the bottom up. Okay, so once you have matter, once matter has manifested or by design, then it also yields other levels of existence. Okay, there was a wonderful book, I think it was either George Eliot Smith, that I actually used for a theoretical framework for my thesis about the body-mind question, and the way the philosophy of science is manifested in the body-mind questions in the medicines, and all of the fields which I had to learn by myself, and that was the joy of it. I didn't write the thesis. It was a thesis proposal. Then I went to study aromatherapy to have hands-on experience in medicine before I say something academic about it. And when we talk about levels of matter, or the name of the book was Can Physics Underlie the Mind? Okay, it's the body-mind question, the spirit of matter and spirit and matter and so on. And the question was, can physics underlie the mind? Can we understand the mind in terms of physics alone? Eliot's response to that was that we have a theory of mind that is, or a theory of consciousness that is accommodating for both processes of bottom-up creation of consciousness, matter evolves into consciousness, and top-down, that is consciousness not descending but manifesting and condensing into matter. And he covers levels of existence from from the waveform and the cell and the electrons, and then into chemistry and biology, into psychology and sociology, into politics and in computation, and so on and so forth. It's like 11 layers of the sciences and of matter. Genius book that I ran through my thesis. I think it was written in 2014 or 2015, so it was also relatively recent to the time that I was working on my thesis proposal. And so when you think about doing things with matter, like right now I'm painting, I'm doing something with matter, and I want to put some more white in it in the corners to fill it with color. And 1, 2, 3, let's do a fifth here. Well, rounding, no, this one. So that was the 105, this is 318. And I'll put them a little bit here. Oh, here. No. This and this and this. Anyway, when we paint or work with matter, there's both a top-down process. Here's just something happening. I do want some yellow, and this is 275. Something is happening. Something is happening in the form. We can say, oh, well, there are levels of consciousness guiding it. And if you want to talk about the determinism of motion and the question of determinism versus free will, then that's a classical issue that I have talked about plenty of times. And you need randomness. You talk about chaos. You need randomness for a pattern to emerge. Okay, you have to have randomness for free will to emerge. And you have to have determinism for free will to be exerted. And so we're working in a way where we need determinism to be free. Okay, we need structure to exert a free motion. And we need randomness for consciousness to emerge, okay, for what you would call free will, to emerge, for will to emerge. Okay, and I'm already liking this even more. Yeah, you can see here. So let's just tap in with the glass, with the cup. It's not a glass, it's a carton cup. And tap, 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 tap. Okay, like it creates tiny waves. So I'm doing the tap. And this is how we also have waveform in music, in vision. So colors and music. We can have tempo here as well. What happens when I do this kind of tapping? Just work on the glass. And that's very interesting. Yeah, just turn it around a little. It's a different sound, but it's also, look at that, a different technique. Okay, so it sounds, this is something that I wonder, when we work with AI, we usually tap, we have a prompt, and then we see the AI generating. We don't see the process of thinking of AI, which I would love to be visible. I would love to see an AI doing that thing with me, and we can tap together and see how our patterns can alternate and kind of artistically affect each other. That's something I'm interested in, the man in the machine, and how those things will create a bit of softness. This is both in the sound, and also the effect of that is a bit softer. We have some time for more color, and that's already beginning to emerge. Okay, there's a painting that begins to emerge by acting, by doing. Okay, thought begins to emerge. So there are two types, not two types. There's the type of learning that you have where you're conceiving stuff and then you're experimenting, you're exerting them in matter, and then there's the type of thinking where you do stuff and consciousness emerges. You might say, oh, there we were channeling, there was something there before you began to tap, or there's something there with you, absolutely. But there is also the understanding, the observation that I'm doing something and something emerges, and there's a chaotic structure to the waves of the top down and emergence that are happening. And waves here is a big word. So this is the 564. And yeah, easy on the whites. So two dots of the 564. Well, what other color do I want to see here? Yeah. This is 267 yellow. So let's just put that yellow over over there. So I don't know, over there and over there, and that's that. And waves, we have several connotations. A wave of something seems to be pretty linear. Think about water. But we also know that the phenomenon when we drop a coin or we drop a stone into still waters, the effects of the bubbles are interesting. These waves kind of intermesh without interfering with each other. There's something very difficult to paint. Water dynamics or fluid dynamics. The mathematical equations, I think, are the stochastics. I don't know what other mathematical equations are used to describe fluid dynamics. And this is again the 661 here that I just love. I can't do without a tinge of white, because the white, what it does, it creates the hue. And it's not just a combination of colors, and so that supposedly lack of pigment. I don't know if it's true. I don't remember if the black one is the lack of pigment at all, or the absorption of all the pigments, or the white one is the rejection of pigments. I don't remember. Either way, this is the wave thingy. We're going all the way up here, all the way up here, and all the way up here. We have an interesting texture forming up, and all the way up here. So there's two, but here I want to. There's a swirl wave form. We can hear it, literally we can hear it, you know, musically. And that's something we do with cups. And it's a little bit here. And let's merge these a bit more so we can have something forming here. And that's pretty much the texture. So we still have the remnants of the paper if you look closely. And I'm keeping them. But this is, it's a revolutionary, it looks like one of those revolutionary sketches. Yeah. Paintings of the revolution. So we'll just let it dry for a bit. From that personal planet Mercury going retrograde, and we talked about chaotic, stochastic, nonlinear dynamic systems that underlie consciousness, and when Mercury is retrograde also underlie communication. Then the higher octave is Uranus, and then we talked about waves and the wave forms. So we talk about the ocean. We're talking about the waves in the ocean. We talk about consciousness. We're talking about waves in our, like the waves, alpha waves, beta waves, theta waves, you know, the waves of the brain function. And then there are also ideas as waves in the language in which we talk about a revolution or a movement is very Uranus related or Saturn Aquarius related, is a wave form. And so we need this the essence of structure, the Saturn, that is the exertion of will, and we need the randomness, the chaos, the more Uranus to allow free will or allow will to emerge. And so a revolutionary or revolutionary times, on a personal level, we have a bit of a revolution during the Mercury retrograde. Your technology and your communication works in unpredictable ways. You might find stuff you were missing, and you might lose stuff, or things can go missing, things can go wrong, and so on and so forth. And then on a bigger level, on the Uranus level, that happens with your entire reality. And it's very interesting to communicate that when Mercury is retrograde. And Uranus retrograde as well, so reflections upon a revolution. So all these emerging patterns in the stochastic sea yield a picture. Okay, so there's something emerging here. And it seems messy, but there is a lot of order in that mess. There's a lot of what we call divine patterning or divine beauty or divine something around this mess. You can see these colors here. And around these patterns emerging, there's a bit of a story there that's beginning to emerge from the disorder of things. There's a new order forming. This is a new order. Okay? This is absolutely a painting. Okay? Messy as it is, this is the order of things here. It's different, it's unusual. But all the while we were doing that, there was room for change. And this is a frame within time, which you can change the way you look at things, and then the things you look at, they do change, right? If I look at it from here, I look at it from here, I look at it from here. There's a different way of framing things, which is another, on a personal level, it's another mercurial tendency. How do we frame something? And that is a part of the creative arch of the universe and also the miraculous changes. And it's being talked about as a wave of thoughts. And that's where we already get Neptune. So in an unaired episode, I talked about the difference between the chaotic, that's Uranus, and the place where we also have this merging where you can't really tell. Okay, if you go here, there are places where you can't really tell when something is beginning and when something is ending. And this is like the waves of the ocean where you can't really separate the waters. Okay, even in language, we use how much water is there and not how many because it's non-countable. And so, or when we look at the ocean, unless you have very specific patterns, normally you have the types of greens and blues there change and transform and melt into each other without you noticing their blending. Here, there's another previous work I did there, and the texture is noticeable, but there is also something about the color that is more Neptunian in the way that it blends. Um, and Neptune is another form of wave where you can no longer tell the eye and the other. Okay, chaos is the pre-Neptune. Okay, Uranus is the pre-Neptune. If you talk about Neptune as well in Pisces, Uranus as well in Aquarius. Uranus is the pre-Neptune. Also on a personal planet, Octave, Mercury and Venus are both planets that were esoterically mixed, co-linked, also in their interpretations. Okay, Mercury can be transportation, Venus can be cars, Mercury is technology, Venus is speaking, singing, voicing ourselves. Mercury is communication, so it's also an active speech, and so on and so forth. So also Uranus, it's the revolution, and Neptune is already the fog around the blending of things. Well, Uranus is the disorder from which a new order emerges. Neptune is the disillusionment or the illusion from which is the reality or the alternative reality that is an actual reality. Think about lucid dreaming. This is Neptune. But think about astral projection. This is Uranus. Okay, or the act where you control your dreams. This is already Uranus. So Tom, did I call him Tom Waits again? Dan Waits had a video about the Neptune conjunction Uranus generation and how we're heading towards towards the trine between Neptune and Uranus in 2026, and which will also coincide with the trine to Pluto. So this is a trine that I talked about, the 1000, the once of a lifetime, the once of a millennia yoga, and that is one of the episodes that I made. I just simply did not find another time in the searchable history that I had, where Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune were forming the same triangle in the sky, with Neptune being the head of the triangle. So, how the conjunction would lead to the trine, and then the trine will be another emergence of those artistic minds, those scientific thinking, the spirit and science people, that will um, take place, will emerge into the zeitgeist and will reappear into the zeitgeist and give their Neptune Uranus display. And this episode is in honoring of Neptune and Uranus. So I wonder if I should paint them in actuality or just leave it at that. Um, yeah, I think I'll just leave this one at that. I might do another. So this is honoring the Neptune Uranus and the discussion of the wave form, emerging of the waveform in our emotions. And this is another important thing. When you sit with dark emotions, brighter patterns begin to emerge. Sometimes vice versa. Okay, you go with only bright, then you want to add a little bit of a shade. You go with only shade, you add a little bit of, lighter tones to it. And when you sit with the emotions that you would paint in dark colors, um, probably depending on your culture as well. Here, for example, white in certain Arabic cultures is actually for mourning, whereas in Judaic culture, and I think also Christian, black is the mourning color. It's mourning as in grief. And so perhaps your emotions would be painted differently with the different contextual culture. Um, so that's one thing to consider. And another things to consider, other than how we psychologically perceive colors, is also the dynamic within them. If we stay with a certain color or color palette, another color palette emerges. And this is the dynamic nature of emotion as a wave form. Um, so, and also in meditation, if you stay with the thoughts and you think about them like waves, then the waves will just pass through and you allow things to flow. From a neurological point of view, we have all the wave, like delta waves, alpha waves, gamma waves of brain function. Then you have the music that corresponds or triggers these waves, sound waves. So how our senses are waves. Now Venus is in Aquarius, so the way our senses are actually waves. Um, the way light is wave, and then how waves govern our senses and govern our thinking and govern our perception, and the role of waves in the emergence and the embodiment of consciousness or waveforms, the waveforms of things. Talk about gravity waves. Here, one of my predictions is we're going to have a lot of applications of gravity waves in engineering and a lot of developments of the sea gravity as a wave, when we come to perform like cosmic search and so on and so forth. Um, so wave, if we talk about the oceanic waves, a wave is also something that is reoccurring, and it's also an act of the integration of the water and the wind. Um, so if Uranus in Taurus is the land and the air, think about soda as a soda, soda pops as Uranus spicy thing. Okay, a soda. Okay, water and air, or the waveform of things as water and air. Um, that is how our emotions respond to our logos. But I talked about the Enlightenment um, and the Romantic era. I was trying to look at Sedna. I didn't find anything about where was Sedna then. I would need to look at individual charts through another. Like I would have to put a bit more effort into it, and that would take some time. Um, I wonder about the aspects between Uranus and Neptune, but that would be something I would need to look into deeper, and see if there was. Would definitely were there a couple of decades long aspects between Uranus and Neptune? That can be. That can be. We're currently in a sextile of Pluto and Neptune, and it's been ongoing, on and off, like the past century. So definitely deserves its own episode. But the Neptune Uranus also deserve an episode. Okay, we're heading towards a trine towards a sextile between Neptune and Uranus. So another cycle with them that is, I think, one concept that correlates them or connects them is the wave form of things. Um, and yeah, we had a little bit of a blinking. It's a very interesting wave form. Look at that. This is so beautiful. Just look at the wave, observing the waves. Another word is tide, going with the tides. That's more of a moon word. Gravity waves, going with the tide. Fish swimming against the tide or swimming with the tide, go with the flow. I don't know about the go with the flow, go with the tide. I'm feeling there's another pattern emerging here, that perhaps is governed by Pluto or Moon Pluto, or Moon going into Pluto's sign, Moon going into Scorpio or heading towards Scorpio. So I will not tackle this now. And this was my paint about astrology episode for today. Thank you for staying in.